Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for this Week 4 NFL slate. We're going to focus on the Sunday slate for this video, so all the games that are happening on Sunday, I think it's 12 total, or maybe 13 actually. We do have a game in London, so we have a game on Sunday morning that starts at 9:30 Eastern Time. I did already make a video specifically for that game, gave out two props I liked in that Jaguars and Falcons game, so if you want to check that video out. If you're going to be watching that game and you want some props to potentially play, I did give out two picks I liked for that one. But for this video, going to focus on the Sunday slate. I will have a separate video that I'll post probably late Sunday night, giving out some props I like for Monday Night Football, which obviously will come later on. But for this video, I'm going to focus on the Sunday slate, and I got four props I like for this week's NFL game. So as always, guys, we're going to talk through these four plays. We're going to share why I like them. Before we do get started, though, if you guys do enjoy these Prizepicks videos and if they do help you out, make sure you hit that like button down below. I always appreciate the likes. Hit that subscribe button if you guys have not yet. Also, be sure to sign up for Prizepicks. If you're not on Prizepicks yet, you can sign up. You can use my promo code Noah when you do sign up, and you will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code. For those of you that maybe don't play on Prizepicks, I would definitely recommend checking them out, especially if you bet like player props on a sports book or something. Prizepicks is a lot different than a sports book. They offer stuff for like fantasy, so they offer like fantasy score. If you ever have played fantasy football before, Prizepicks has fantasy point projections for all the players, and you can take more or less on a player's fantasy point projections. They also have these combos they've added, like receiving yard combos, where they combine two players' projections. You can take more or less on that. They have touchdowns as well. A lot of stuff you can take on Prizepicks that some of these sports books don't offer. So if you guys are not on Prizepicks yet, get signed up over there, and again, use that promo code Noah. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code. And real quick, I do also want to give a shout out to Sleeper, because we are partnered up with Sleeper, guys. And if you're not on Sleeper, they're an app very similar to Prizepicks, where it's focused on player props. You're picking over or under on players' projections. On Sleeper, though, it's a dynamic payout system. So what that means is basically whether you pick the over or the under on a certain prop, the payout will change based on what you take. So there will be props where you get like a very high multiplier, maybe like 2x, 2.5x, and for that reason, Sleeper is able to, they don't really have to like cap their payouts. You can make entries on Sleeper with up to 100x payout. You can make up to 8 pick entries over there. So if you're one of those people that really likes to chase those high payouts, I definitely recommend giving Sleeper a try. Again, if you're not on Sleeper, guys, use that promo code Noah as well over on Sleeper. You'll get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you sign up for Sleeper with my promo code. But let's go ahead and talk through this Prizepicks slate and what I'm liking for Sunday. Again, guys, I've got 4 picks I'm liking for this Week 4 slate. We got 3 fantasy scores that I'm looking at, and then we have a reception prop that I like this week. So for fantasy score, we're going to start off with Kyren Williams. We're going to take a look at his fantasy score. The line sits at 15 on Prizepicks, and this is an over that I do like. So more than 15 fantasy score for Kyren Williams. Now, if we look so far this season in their first 3 games, you can't really look too much at the games early on in the season, because Cam Akers was still on the team, especially for that Week 1 game against Seattle. But he did have a big game against Seattle, even with Cam Akers on the team. Had 15 carries, 52 yards, also had 2 touchdowns. For some reason, the game log on Prizepicks is like way off. Their game log I don't think is right. The 49ers game is right, but they don't have the Seattle game on there. But either way, he had a good game Week 1, even with Cam Akers active. Had 2 touchdowns. The Week 2 game against San Fran, big game from Kyren Williams, 14 carries for 52 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also got 10 targets, 6 catches for 48 yards, and a receiving touchdown, so really big game there. And then last week, he did kind of struggle against Cincinnati, but the opportunities were still pretty solid for Kyren Williams. He saw 10 carries for 38 yards. He also had 7 targets, 2 catches for 27 yards. Not the best game overall, but the volume was still there. He still saw 17 opportunities. In the game before that against San Fran, he saw 24 opportunities, which is for opportunities, that's rush attempts plus targets. And he's been getting a lot of opportunity ever since Cam Akers got released. And obviously Cam Akers is no longer on the team. So this is Kyren Williams' backfield. He has pretty much no competition for touches behind him. If we take a look at their Week 2 game against San Fran, that was without Cam Akers. Kyren Williams played 95% of the snaps. Last week against Cincinnati, even though he did really struggle, only had 8.5 fantasy points, he played 100% of the snaps. You almost never see running backs at this day and age in the NFL play 100% of the snaps. Is this going to affect Kyren Williams in the long run? Maybe. Like, maybe as the season goes on, if he continues to play 100% of the snaps every week, like maybe he starts to get less effective as the season goes on. But he should be fresh early on in the season right now, and he's poised to have a massive workload every single week. This Rams team, you look at the guys behind Kyren Williams, it's pretty much Ronnie Rivers and Royce Freeman. Those are two guys that the Rams do not want to play. I mean, they haven't, like, week 2, Ronnie Rivers played 4 snaps. Royce Freeman has yet to play a snap this season. It's going to be Kyren Williams out there getting all the touches, and it doesn't matter if the Rams are playing with a lead, if they're playing from behind. It doesn't matter. He's going to be out there getting carries if they're playing with a lead, and if they're playing from behind, he's going to be out there catching passes. And on Prizepicks, you do get a full PPR. It's a full point per reception, so if you can get running backs that can catch passes to go along with the carries they're going to get, the rushing yards they're going to get, and potentially the rushing touchdowns they could get, that just adds to their floor and ceiling for fantasy. So given just the volume that Kyren Williams is getting right now, I think 15 fantasy score is definitely too low of a line for him. He projects to see like 14, 15 carries here. He projects to get like 4 to 5 targets at a minimum. If he's going to see close to 20 touches, I'll bank on him getting 15 fantasy score more than not. You could also look at, I think they do have a touchdown prop up for Kyren Williams. I'm not 100% sure on that. They do have a combo prop. They don't have any touchdown props. If they were to add like a touchdown prop, that's something you could look at. But I like fantasy score just because with fantasy score, if Kyren Williams does score a touchdown, there's a pretty good chance he's going to go over this line. And if he doesn't score a touchdown, I could still see him going over this line just because he could rack up a lot of receptions. He could get a lot of yards. He doesn't need a touchdown to get over 15 fantasy score. But if they somehow do add like a rushing touchdown prop for Williams, or maybe like a rushing plus receiving, I wouldn't mind taking the over on that as well, just because when they get down near the goal line, Kyren Williams is going to be the guy getting those carries. So I think his touchdown upside, his touchdown potential is pretty high here. But 15 fantasy score for Kyren Williams, like the over here. Do want to mention that I do subscribe to fantasy point projections. There's a lot of sites out there that offer fantasy point projections, and the site that I subscribe to, they have Kyren Williams projected for almost 19 fantasy points. So they're way over this line. I think this line on Prizepicks is definitely too low at 15. So that's the first play I like. And then the next prop we're going to look at is another fantasy score. And we're going to take a look at Keenan Allen, 18.5 fantasy score. This is another over that I like. So more than 18.5 fantasy score for Keenan Allen. I know this is kind of a high line for a wide receiver, but again, on Prizepicks, the scoring system, it is full PPR. So you do get a point per reception. And I think it was last week, Keenan Allen had I want to say he had 15 receptions last week, something crazy. He had 18 receptions. The dude literally scored 18 fantasy points last week just from catching the ball. Just from catches, not even factoring in yards or touchdowns. He scored 18 points last week just from catches. Now, obviously, we can't expect 18 receptions every week from Keenan Allen, but he has had a massive target share so far this season, and he's been the best wide receiver in the league, especially for fantasy. I'm pretty sure so far this season, he leads, in terms of fantasy points per game, he leads the league in fantasy points per game in terms of wide receivers. I think he's had the most fantasy points overall. He's the wide receiver 1 so far in fantasy. And as long as Keenan Allen stays healthy, he could have a monster year here. This Chargers team, they're a very pass-heavy team. They're throwing the ball a ton right now. And without Austin Eckler, without Mike Williams, we can expect an even higher target share for Keenan Allen. We can probably expect the Chargers to throw the ball even more without their best running back. They're going to have to lean on their passing game even more. And the volume has just been crazy for Keenan Allen so far this season. He saw 9 targets in their week 1 game against Miami, 10 targets against Tennessee, and then last week, Keenan Allen saw 20 targets. Now, 20 targets is not something we can project for any wide receiver, but clearly the volume is going to be there. This Chargers team, they just don't have anyone else really to throw the ball to. Without Mike Williams and without Austin Eckler, it's just going to be a lot of opportunity for Keenan Allen, a lot of opportunity for Josh Palmer. Maybe Quentin Johnson gets some opportunity, but they haven't really been throwing the ball to their running backs. Josh Kelly has not really been involved in the passing game. Gerald Everett as their tight end has not really been involved a ton in the passing game either. He hasn't seen a ton of targets. My only concern is that maybe the Raiders just come out here and double team Keenan Allen and try and just make someone else beat them. But the dude, Keenan Allen's one of the best route runners in the league. He just finds ways to get open. And with the type of volume he projects for here, 18.5 fantasy score. I know this line feels pretty high for a wide receiver, but the guy's probably going to catch like 6-7 balls at the minimum. He's probably going to get at least 70, 80 yards, and I think his touchdown upside, his potential to score a touchdown is pretty high. He did score 2 touchdowns in week 2. He still put up 45 fantasy points last week without scoring a touchdown. He did throw a touchdown last week. But yeah, the guy's just got so much upside right now with how much, with how high his target share is, and his target share is going to remain high while Austin Eckler and Mike Williams are out. Mike Williams obviously is done for the season, and Austin Eckler is doubtful for this week. He's not expected to play. So give me more than 18.5 fantasy score for Keenan Allen. And again, the projections that I subscribe to, the fantasy point projections, they actually have Keenan Allen projected for just over 22.5 fantasy points. So they have Allen they have him 4 points over this line. This is another line that I think is definitely too low on Prizepicks. So those are the first 2 plays I like. Now we're going to take a look at a reception prop. We're actually going to stick to the Chargers. We're going to stick with the Chargers. We're going to take a look at Josh Palmer, 3.5 receptions. If I can find it. Yeah, Josh Palmer, 3.5 receptions. And this is another over that I like. So more than 3.5 receptions for Josh Palmer. Now, you can't really look at Josh Palmer's recent games just because obviously some of these games were with Austin Eckler. Some of these games were with Mike Williams. Well, obviously they don't have Austin Eckler or they don't have Mike Williams for this game. And if we take a look at Josh Palmer, the games he's played without Mike Williams, because that's really the big tell. No Mike Williams just means Josh Palmer is going to be out there for every single snap. And if you look at the snaps last week, now Mike Williams did play last week, but he got injured, I think, I want to say in the third quarter. Josh Palmer went on to play 61% of the snaps last week after Mike Williams played 67%. I think we can expect probably a 85, 90% snap share for Josh Palmer here. He's pretty much going to be like an every down wide receiver. And he has been really good in the games that he has played without Mike Williams. He's played, since joining the Chargers, Palmer has played 5 games without Mike Williams. In those 5 games, he's had 6, 10, 8, 7, and 11 targets, and then he's had 5, 8, 3, 5, and 7 receptions. So he's had at least 5 receptions in 4 out of the 5 games without Mike Williams. The one game where he did not get 5 receptions was a tough matchup against the 49ers. He had 3 receptions in that game, but he still saw 8 targets. So the volume was still really good for Palmer in that game, even though he didn't get 5 receptions. But with how pass heavy this Chargers offense is, I expect a lot of opportunity for Keenan Allen. I expect massive volume for Keenan Allen, but I also expect a lot of opportunity for Josh Palmer. And normally I would not take 2 wide receivers from the same team unless I was kind of correlating the play with their quarterback. But this is just a spot where I think the passing offense target share is going to be so condensed around just a handful of guys that I'm fine taking 2 overs from the same team here. I could still, I obviously think there's a good chance that Keenan Allen goes over this fantasy score line and Josh Palmer also gets 4 receptions, even though these guys are kind of taken away from each other because obviously only one of these guys can catch the ball on a given play. This Chargers team is just going to pass the ball so much. It's a really good matchup against the Raiders. It's a good game environment. This game's going to be played indoors. It's got a high total. Typically, again, I don't like taking multiple overs on the same team just because you do run more systemic risk with that. But there is kind of some correlation here. Like if we assume Keenan Allen has a big game, maybe that means this game winds up being really high scoring and the Chargers are throwing a lot. And that could also mean Josh Palmer gets his 4 receptions. I think there's a good chance both these guys go over these props. And I was taking a look at DK Sportsbook, some odds, and right now they have Palmer heavily juiced minus 145 to go over 3.5 receptions. So don't be surprised if Prizepicks bumps this line to 4 at some point. Hopefully by the time you're watching this video, it'll still be at 3.5. But I like this play a lot, and I'm fine playing it with the Keenan Allen fantasy score. If you want to take a Justin Herbert prop and correlate that with these 2 plays, you could do that. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to be taking these 2 wide receivers. But that's the 3rd play that I like, guys. And then the 4th play I like is going to be another fantasy score prop. We're going to go down to Tony Pollard's fantasy score line, 15.5. Going to take a look at this one. Another over that I like. So we're kind of slamming some overs this week. Hopefully we'll see a lot of high-scoring games, at least in the games that we're targeting. But 15.5 fantasy score for Tony Pollard. This line just feels too low to me. I know the matchup against New England might not be the best overall, but if you actually look this season, New England has not been great against the run. They've kind of just been a league average team against the run in terms of fantasy points allowed and stuff. So I don't think the matchup's horrible for Tony Pollard. And this is a bank on talent for Tony Pollard. This is a bank on volume and usage. Tony Pollard's one of the best running backs in the league. Ever since Ezekiel Elliott left town, Pollard has really been able to showcase his upside, and he's been great so far this season for fantasy. Week 1 against the Giants had 22 fantasy points. Week 2 against the Jets had nearly 20 fantasy points. Last week against Arizona, he kind of struggled. Still put up 15 fantasy points, though, in a game where he kind of struggled. Like, I don't think Pollard scored a touchdown last week, and he still put up 15 fantasy points. I want to pull up his game log just to confirm what he had. But last week, even without scoring a touchdown, Tony Pollard got 23 carries for 122 yards, also had 3 catches for -1 yards. So he put up just over 15 fantasy points without a TD. In week 2, he didn't score a TD, still put up 20 fantasy points against the Jets. And then week 1 against the Giants, he did score 2 touchdowns in that game. But Pollard has been so efficient as a runner just all throughout his career, and really ever since he's been with Dallas. He's a guy that's going to average close to 5-6 yards per carry. He's very explosive, has a lot of big play upside, and he's a volume monster. He's going to get all the opportunity for this Cowboys team. Obviously, with Zeke no longer on the team, this is Pollard's backfield. And if we take a look at the snaps this season for the Cowboys, if we take a look at the running back snaps, it's been Pollard getting a large majority of the snaps, and especially in their competitive games, Pollard's been getting a lot of the snaps. Now, week 1 was a massive blowout against the Giants. Even though Pollard did go over this line, he only played 64% of the snaps in week 1, but that was because the Cowboys won that game 40-0. Like, they didn't even need Pollard out there in the fourth quarter. Week 2 against the Jets, I think, was also kind of a blowout. That was a game the Cowboys won very easily. Well, week 3 against the Cardinals, they actually lost that game, and we saw Pollard get up to 86% of the snaps. So clearly, in important games that are close, we can expect Pollard to play about 75 to 85% of the snaps. I think the only reason his snaps were down the first 2 weeks of the season was because those games were both blowouts. This is not a game that we should expect to be a blowout against New England. I mean, right now, Dallas is favored by 6.5. They are at home here, but this projects to be a competitive game. And if we're going to get Tony Pollard playing 75, 85% of the snaps, if we're going to get 20-plus touches from him, I mean, the guy's can just walk into 15.5 fantasy points. Like, again, he doesn't have to be super efficient to go over this line. He could get there on volume. He could get there on touchdowns. If the Cowboys get near the goal line, Pollard's going to be in there getting those touchdowns. You don't have to worry about Zeke taking those touchdowns away anymore. It's going to be Pollard getting all the goal line work. And by some chance, if things go bad here and the Cowboys get a big deficit, if they're playing from behind, that's not really bad because Tony Pollard's going to be out there catching passes even if the Cowboys are playing from behind. So he's pretty much a game script proof running back. The only way that his snaps go down is if the Cowboys get like a massive lead. And if the Cowboys do have a massive lead, well, that probably means that Pollard has already put up a big game. So 15.5 fantasy score for Tony Pollard. I mean, I would take the over on this line pretty much every single week, no matter what the matchup is. I mean, it could be the worst possible matchup for Tony Pollard, and I think I would bet on him getting over 15.5 fantasy score. Like, the guy's he's one of the best running backs in the league. He's super efficient. He's a volume monster, and the Patriots, I mean, this season against the run, they really haven't been like that great at stopping the run. So I don't think the matchup's even that bad for Pollard here. Plus, he's playing at home in the dome. Good field conditions, good, no weather concerns or anything like that. So I like this play quite a bit. Probably, honestly, this might be my favorite of all the 4 plays is the Pollard fantasy score. But guys, these are 4 plays I like for this week 4 Sunday slate over on Prizepicks. We got 3 fantasy score props and a reception prop. Kyron Williams, more than 15 fantasy score. Keenan Allen, more than 18.5 fantasy score. Josh Palmer, more than 3.5 receptions. And Tony Pollard, more than 15.5 fantasy score. Again, guys, if you're going to be tailing me on these 4 plays, wish you guys the best of luck. Hopefully we can cash out. Hopefully we can hit all 4 of these plays, make some money this week. But as always, guys, appreciate you watching, supporting the content. Make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you have not yet. Hit that subscribe button as well. And go check out Prizepicks too. If you guys are not signed up for Prizepicks yet, get signed up over there. Use my promo code Noah when you do sign up, and you will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code. But good luck this week, guys. Thanks as always for supporting the content. Appreciate you guys a ton. Let's cash out. Let's make some money this week, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.